been active most of my life. At school I did a lot of sports and I was more of a girl jock than an academic. Sadly, in 2002, my mum died and I turned to food for comfort. I indulged in all the wrong types of foods, and before I knew it, I was up to a UK size 24. I began to feel sick a lot of the time, tired, and I was always in pain. And I would end up going to bed feeling nauseous. Exercise was very difficult for me. I couldn't even walk on the treadmill without holding on. Never mind running, that was just a no-go. Walking on the treadmill was something that was very exhausting for me, even if it was just 10 minutes. But I had decided that I wanted to do something about it. Enough was enough. And I started doing Thai boxing. This is not necessarily something that I would actually recommend because of the roots of where it comes from. But I enjoyed the full body workouts. It worked my whole body, and it was exactly what I needed from an exercise point of view at the time. The Thai boxing gave me results up to a point, and I soon realized that it was not just exercise that was important, it was what I was putting in my mouth, what I was feeding my body, and all the foods that I was eating. I really needed the combination of the exercise and the food. And I was coming from eating whatever I liked, all meats, all dairies, all processed sugars, whatever you could imagine I would eat, and not realize that that was harming my body much more than I realized. So I started to make a change to my diet as well. So as I continued on this journey to trying to lose weight, and realizing that it was not just about exercise and it was also about the food that I was eating, I tried to make some changes to my diet, but only to an extent did it work. Eventually in 2009, I had learned and been introduced to what is known as the health message. In 2009, I was introduced to Seventh-day Adventism, and part of that, there's a health message involved, and they talk about your health and your mind and how the two are closely related, and how this actually helps you relate to God and hear God's voice and understand the Bible and the truth and the times that we're living in. Part of this was eliminating meat and becoming introduced to a plant-based diet. This is something that I initially struggled with. I sat back and I listened. I continued to exercise, but noticed that I had hit a plateau. I wasn't getting any results. And I was struggling to get abdominal fat off the most, which is a very stubborn area. So I continued to listen. And eventually, as I watched people and I saw how they never got on well, it was very rare that they did. If they did get unwell with a simple cold or maybe even the flu, they seemed to recover from it very quickly. They had a lot of health and vibrance in their face, their eyes were glowing, and they were very alert. They were intellectually very sound. Their thought processes were very sharp and fast, and this ranged from the smallest child to the oldest adults. And of course, you know, the women, they hardly had any wrinkles on their faces, and I was very intrigued by this. I asked them what it was, and of course, from what I was observing and what they told me, it was their diet. So I had decided I was going to be vegetarian, still eating some dairy and cheese. I ate vegetarian food for a week until I heard someone speak to us at our church about pure plant-based eating, and I was convinced that I needed to take on a plant-based lifestyle in the realms of a vegan type of food, but I still incorporated honey, so I couldn't say that I was vegan. This made a significant difference in my health. While I did that, I also cut out any processed sugars, and the weight initially dropped off and I started to feel much better. I was more alert, I had more energy, and it was a journey and a process that I went through. In all honesty, at the beginning, I felt very hungry because I had not educated myself enough of what to eat. But I persevered and I carried on. And I was thriving in this lifestyle, and I was sharing with people what I knew. The weight was slowly but surely coming off, but very, very slowly at that point. And then in 2011, my father passed away, and I was visiting family, and I made some bad choices again. I wasn't coping with what was going on around me, and I went back to eating meats and dairy. And this time I wasn't eating pork and shellfish, but I was eating all the other meats. And as would be, the weight started to creep on very rapidly. I started to feel unwell again. The acne that I started to have on my face was flaring up again. Until I decided in 2012 that enough was enough. If I was going to be healthy, I was going to have to be plant-based again, because I missed the way that I had been feeling. And I noticed that it was interfering with my relationship with God. I was not able to hear God's voice clearly. And I found that I was making decisions that I wondered, why did I even make that decision? So I put my head down and I went back to being plant-based, and I decided to start exercising, which in turn as well at the time was when I met my now husband, the man I was courting at the time, and he was very supportive in my walk. I started off with doing Insanity for 60 days. If you've ever heard of that workout, you will know why it's called Insanity. If you've never done it, go check it out, because I do recommend it. It will push you to your limits. After the Insanity, I dropped more weight combined with a plant-based lifestyle. I then decided to do a 30-day juice fast, because I realized that my body was still very sick inside and I needed to get the toxins out. I couldn't just expect by putting the good things in that all of a sudden I would be feeling really vibrant. I did feel a lot better, and I was doing better, and my skin was beginning to clear up, but I still had a lot of, I would say, diseased stuff in my bowels and in my system, and it needed to come out. So I decided to do a 30-day juice fast in order to just allow my body to rest, so that it could focus on healing and eliminating all those toxins. And I did it. This was a huge milestone for me, because as I mentioned in the past, I had a very greedy nature, and this highlighted to me when were the times that I ran to food instead of to God. It was during this time that I heard God's instruction for my life very clearly. I grew as a Christian, and I grew as a person, and I noticed how my skin really was clearing up. I was borderline hypothyroid. Another word for that is underactive thyroid, and by eating better, my blood levels for my thyroid had come back to normal. I had very, very painful monthly cramps, as a lot of women suffer from, and I noticed that the pain had started to decrease, and the cramps and the flow and everything was starting to become as it should do. So I continued after the 30 days, just to eat really clean and try my best and continue to exercise. And during this time, my fiance at the time then, he just continued to encourage me, and the weight was just coming off and coming off. Every time I went to see him, he would comment on how I looked smaller and I looked healthier, and people at work were shocked at the difference that they were seeing in me. Initially, sadly, sometimes people would say that it was just a fad, I wouldn't stick to it. But I was determined, because I had realized that my diet was an act of worship to God. It was no longer just about eating. I was going to put the best in my body, because my body is a temple, and I wanted God to be happy with this body so that His Spirit could dwell here. So then it became, do I eat that, or do I say no to it, deny myself, and use it as an act of worship unto Him? And that made the process of decisions much easier and much clearer for me. So I did that, and in turn then after that I did another 20-day juice fast, and my juicer broke, and then God provided me with another juicer, and I did another 10-day juice fast, and this whole time the weight was finally coming off. I was starting to see what I actually looked like. Some people were slightly worried about me at first because I had started to lose weight so rapidly that they thought I had become unwell, because they were not used to this. I had to have time off because I'd hurt my back from work, and when I came back, they were shocked. They almost didn't recognize me. Then eventually I continued to eat plant-based and increased my raw foods, and lots of fruit and juice and vegetables and lots of exercise. And then I decided that I wanted to do something quite challenging, which was the Master Cleanse. This I decided to do for 40 days. This is fasting on clear fluid of maple syrup, cayenne pepper, lemon and water, and I only had that for 40 days. So I embarked on the 40-day Master Cleanse challenge, and it was a challenge, all right. It was good. Like I said, it was clear fluids, and it revealed a lot of things to me, and I believe helped me face my food addictions that I had and overcome them by the power and the help of Jesus Christ. This is sadly something that many people are addicted to, is food, and they don't realize, and food becomes an idol. And rather than want to serve God and do things the way that He tells us to do it, when we cannot be faithful in the small things like food, how are we going to be faithful in the big things? And these are some of the things that I learned, and God spoke to me during that 40 days. Then obviously I lost a lot of weight, and by then I had become a UK size 10. So I'd gone down from a 24 down to size 10. And as of course, when you start to eat again, your body regulates itself. And I'm now presently a UK size 12, and I'm probably sitting between a 10 and a 12 because I've recently done another Master Cleanse, which is my third one. After the 40-day one, I did a 2-week one, and now recently I did a 5-day one. I've done 3 Master Cleanses in total. 40 days, 2 weeks, and 5 days was the most recent. I always feel really good when I do this, and my body expels a lot of toxins, and I find that during all the juice fasts and the Master Cleanses, I was able to exercise and actually performed better. I was able to run for longer, I was able to run faster, and when I'm finished the Master Cleanse, I usually continue with the weightlifting program that my husband is training me on. I am not at my final goal yet. I'm still in process, and I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the journey. But the most important thing is that I've gained from this is a closer walk with Jesus, and that's what I want everyone else to experience. Educate yourself. You do not need to just eat what people tell you to eat, what the world and the government says, eat this. Think for yourself. Start putting the right things in your body so that you can be alert. One of the things that always stands in the forefront of my mind is that when the disciples said to Jesus, what are the things that we need to look for in the times when you will come again, in those end times? The first thing he said was, do not be deceived. So bear in mind, the foods that we eat, they affect our mind, they affect our frontal lobe. How can we not be deceived if we're putting the wrong things in our body? We have a responsibility to God and to the people around us to be putting the right foods in us so that we can be the best that we can be for God and for the people around us. It helps us to serve people better. It's not saying that if you're unhealthy or that if you're overweight and unwell that you can't serve God or that you don't ever hear from Him. But you don't realize how clearer you hear God and how He is able to use you in these small things. In the end, you realize that this small thing is not a small thing, it's actually a very big thing. People are very, very sick today, and a lot of people are dying because of the foods that they put in their mouth. Don't be another statistic. You can be a change, and your change in your lifestyle will be able to help someone else change. I'm an ordinary person, and I'm on a very real journey. I'm no different to anyone else. I'm no better, and I'm no worse. The same as you, but you can help someone. I did it with the help of God, not myself. I tried over and over to try and do it myself, but I was never able to. I kept falling. But with the support of my husband and the strength of Jesus Christ, I was able to make significant changes to my life, to my diet, and to my mind. And so I really, really want you to experience that too. And I look forward to hearing your testimonies about what God's health plan has done for you. And I can't wait to, God willing, see